Unpopular opinion, but I'm convinced that Disney hates Black people. Stay tuned to hear why the movie Soul is a prime example. Hi YouTube, welcome to the Anti-Racism Academy. My name is Brandy Blocker Anderson and I'm a triple Ivy League educated lawyer, teacher, activist, and the mother of an adorable 3-year-old named William. In this video, we're going to discuss why the movie Soul is yet another example of Disney's anti-Black bias. Have you ever noticed that Disney has a tendency to turn protagonists of color into animals or otherwise fail to show them in their human form? You would think Disney would have learned this lesson from the backlash against The Princess and the Frog, which featured the company's first Black animated protagonist, the not-quite Princess Tiana, in 2009. 2009. Let that sink in. In that film, Disney opts to portray Tiana as a frog for the majority of the runtime. In Soul, less than 10 minutes into the movie, Joe Gardner, voiced by Jamie Foxx, is turned into a blue sperm cell, which I guess is supposed to be a nod to Casper. I don't like it. Then, when his character has the opportunity to get back into his body, the opters write to turn him into a cat, while leaving Tina Fey to inhabit Joe's body. But why? From that point, Joe, unable to communicate with the world, must negotiate with Tina Fey's character to carry out all of his dialogue and desires. Then, when he's finally able to switch back into his body, she pulls a,
"You know I can't give you the keys, right, babe?"
Tina Fey literally absconds with his body before he gets it back around the 1 hour and 12-minute mark, only to opt to become a sperm ghost a second time, turning Joe into a blob and then a cat, and then having Tina Fey voice Joe's character are all ways of avoiding true representation. Moreover, Disney and Pixar are sending the message that they don't believe audiences will connect with a Black animated character who remains in their full human form for the entirety of a film. Now, before you go saying, but what about Miles Morales? Check out our video on that character to hear why he's problematic as well. An odd choice for a children's film, Soul is about a middle-aged man who is portrayed as a pathetic failed jazz musician who takes his job as a middle school band teacher for granted. And after getting his body back from Tina Fey and accomplishing his life goal of getting a spot in his idol's band, he decides that that's not good enough and opts to literally die to allow Tina Fey's character to live. Like I mentioned in our video on analyzing kids' content for racial bias, the idea that a character of color would or should die for a white character is racist. According to the plot, Tina Fey's character didn't need someone to sacrifice their life for her to live. She opted not to live for thousands of years. Yet, the film gaslights Joe and the viewer into thinking that Joe is somehow a monster for reminding us that the only reason she got her spark was because she was in his body. As Joe decides to commit suicide, we're treated to a montage of his life, starting with the time spent as Tina Fey. For example, he recalls the scene in which Tina Fey, while in Joe's body, enthralls a barbershop full of Black men with her blathering on about philosophy. Yeah, right. This scene also implies that Tina Fey is better at being a Black man than Joe by having his longtime barber go out of his way to mention how seen he feels by Joe that day because all Joe ever wanted to talk about was jazz. By having him reflect on these moments just before deciding to literally die for a white woman, the scene sends a message that Joe's life isn't worth living and his redemption arc lies in death, as his choice to die represents his realization that he's been taking his life for granted and therefore Tina Fey deserves to live more. Earlier in the film, Joe tells his mother that he's afraid that if he died today, his life amounted to nothing, and explaining why he needed to perform with Dorothea Williams. It seems that based on his disappointment with the experience of getting his big break and his choice to die for Tina Fey, that his life is still meaningless in Joe's eyes. Narratively, it doesn't even make sense why this character had to die in the first place. We find out that Joe is actually in a coma. Joe is able to make a psychic connection with his body and even speak, alerting the doctors to the fact that he's still alive. And even after Tina Fey takes over his body, he's able to leave the hospital, eventually get back into his body, and kill it at the performance that night. But I guess Disney decided to add a Final Destination flair because a death fairy literally hunts him down like he's cheated death's design to drag his soul back into the sky like he's one of the villains from the movie Ghost. In the end, the nice death fairies decide to save him from his self-pity and give him a second chance. On the one hand, the film presents his sacrifice as noble, having him reassure Tina Fey that he's already lived his life, so it's okay for him to die now. I guess somebody at Disney had some sense, so they decided to let him live. But the film ends there, so we never get the sense that Joe ever realizes that he does have something to live for. As a black man in a profession with so few black men, Disney had the opportunity to show us how he finally realizes that teaching and inspiring others is Joe's spark. Disney seems to want us to get this point by showing us how mesmerized the students are when he plays, and having his former students tell him,
"Look, honestly, your class was the only reason I went to school at all. Like, I owe you a lot."
But in the end, we don't know whether Joe gets it or not. He had the opportunity to teach full-time and play for his idol at night, but decided to give them both up. Hopefully, now he'll appreciate his life. Drop a yes or no in the comments for whether you picked up on any of these issues. Building on Professor Kimberly Crenshaw's concept of intersectionality, critical race scholar Dr. Moya Bailey coined the term misogynoir to describe the specific hatred, dislike, distrust, and prejudice directed toward black women. The black women in Soul are portrayed as mean and emasculating. The leading women in the film are his mother, voiced by Felicia Rashad, aka Claire Huxtable, aka America's Black Mom, and Dorothea Williams, voiced by the legendary actress and fellow Yale grad, Angela Bassett. Within seconds of being introduced to Joe's mom, she reads him for filth, letting us know that he's a middle-aged man who never had a full-time job. According to his mom, Joe's dad was also a failed musician who couldn't support his family financially, forcing her to be the breadwinner with her tailoring shop. Joe credits his dad with introducing him to his life's passion, yet his mom completely dumps on his legacy. It's Tina Fey's intervention that prompts Joe to stand up to his mother after she channels Rita's mom in Sister Act 2.
Singing does not put food on the table. Singing does not pay the bills. Singing is no guarantee to a future, even if you have got
Mom,
talent.
do you know I can sing?
So could your daddy, and he died still trying to make it.
Despite his impact, at the beginning of the film, we learn that Joe is only now being offered a full-time position as a middle school band teacher, despite having taught at the school long enough to have grown students. The film hints at the structural inequalities that teachers who teach children of color face, such as inadequate pay, health insurance, pension, and other benefits, as well as the lack of funding for music and arts programs. However, Joe's failure to maintain a full-time job is cast as a personal failing, with his mom clowning him by retorting,
Too bad you can't rescue your career.
"Why she gotta be like that?" Anyway, the point is that this film sends crappy messages about both black mothers and fathers. Similarly, the character Dorothea is portrayed as rude and disrespectful towards our protagonist. Joe comes to her aid at the last minute after her regular pianist bails on her, yet off rip she's rude to him, saying,
"So, we're down to middle school band teachers now."
Like, word? After seeing Joe, as Tina Fey, wearing a hospital gown out in the streets, instead of showing concern, she has Joe's former student let him know that he's fired. Despite all this, Joe is so thirsty that he literally comes back from the dead to perform with her. As a black woman and a black mother of a black son, I'm so over folks throwing dirt on our name. By making their disdain for the protagonist their defining character traits, this fuels the angry black woman stereotype, which is weaponized against black women. Despite literally being named Soul and being about a black jazz musician and music teacher, this film is missing its soul as it either plays issues of race and racism for laughs or sidesteps them altogether. For example, the film pays lip service to racial discrimination when Joe acknowledges,
"This would be hard even if I wasn't wearing a hospital gown."
instead of Tina Fey having to grapple with the discrimination she may face now that she's in the body of a black man, it's a throwaway line that'll likely go over many people's heads, especially their intended viewers, kids. Another cringeworthy racist moment was when the evil death fairy mistakes a random black guy for Joe. You know, because we all look alike. Then he snatches the soul out of this man's body into the sunken place and goes all crazy cop on the poor guy before realizing his mistake. The death fairy leaves the man visibly traumatized, telling him no harm, no foul, before appearing in a bag of potato chips, telling him to lay off the processed foods because they kill. The fact that this sequence is played for laughs shows just how thoughtless and insensitive the folks at Disney are towards Black issues such as trauma, racial profiling, police brutality, and poor eating habits due to systemic racism such as food deserts. Can you tell how much I like this movie? This movie serves me Coco meets Get Out with a little bit of Sister Act 2 sprinkled in, which were all better movies. Overall, I give it a 2.5 Power to the People fists out of 5, and that's mainly because I'm a huge fan of Jamie Foxx, Felicia Rashad, and Angela Bassett. For a free checklist on how to analyze kids' contents of racial bias, please click the link in the description box below. So please support this Black business by liking the video, subscribing to this channel, and Power to the People fist bumping that notification bell so you can receive updates whenever we post new videos. Every Tuesday. Once again, this has been the Anti-Racism Academy, and I've been your host, Brandy Blocker Anderson. Thanks so much for watching.